Are you muted?
Oh
Thank
boy.
you.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. Thank you for, yeah. So I got to repeat everything I said. So just make it short. Greetings, everyone. This is the last of the 10 classes, and we're grateful that we made it this far, and that I'm grateful that so many of you have stayed with us throughout the course. I will make some comments at the very end about the course and about next year. So let's get started with Igor. Could you?
Sure. Hi. Welcome to our December class, the last class in the sequence by Reverend Dr. Ken Tanaka. It is good to see everyone again. My name is Igor Makasyuk, a member of steering committee, and I will serve as your MC. This course included people of all levels of understanding Buddhism. Some of you were completely new, others were more advanced. Reverend Dr. Tanaka worked to find a middle path between making it too simple or too difficult. The questions at the end helped us to think about the ideas presented in each class. They became a very important part of this course. Please consider completing the questions for this final class. It is your comments and observations that contribute to making this class what it was intended for, making Buddhism more accessible to us in the West. Responses to the November class have been uploaded to the November class folder on our course website. The responses are wide-ranging and some unexpected. Together, we see how each of us understands the teachings. Dr. Tanaka has responded to some of your questions. You will be able to see those in the November folder on our website. Allow me now to share another experience from Dr. Tanaka's life that has relevance to today's topic. This experience will again be shared in Dr. Tanaka's first-person voice. I turned 75 years old this November, and I cannot help but to feel that the end of my early life is getting closer, though there are no plans to go soon. This awareness makes me think even more about what Pure Land means to me. When I do, I inevitably think about my teacher, Miyagi Sensei. As relayed to you in the October class, whenever he came to teach us at the IBS, Sensei always first went before the Buddhist altar to pay his respects to Amida. Then Sensei would make a pledge in a loud voice to do his very best to teach us so as not to have any regrets when he met Amida in the Pure Land. This always struck me with a mixed feeling of respect and envy for such a strong faith. That envy stemmed from my inability to embrace that part of the teachings to the same degree. Well, today, some 35 years later, my own trust in Amida and Pure Land, though perhaps not as personified or strong as that of Miyagi-sensei, is much firmer than before, contributing to my spiritual well-being as I live my twilight years with greater joy, greater assurance, greater clarity, and a greater desire to engage with others. Best wishes, Ken. Dr. Tanaka, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Igor. I think some sections of Igor's talk was a little bit garbled, but whatever I said, it is written in the outline at the very end. So please take a look at that. Allow me to share the. Okay, so I've entitled this last class, Pure Land, Its Meaning in Our Journey. And I have updated the outline because this was not in there. And as always, if you go back to our website, you can check out the latest version of the outline or the PowerPoint. So in terms of the meaning in our lives, we're talking about birth in the Pure Land. And in the parable, it's phase 7, the last of the 7 phases. And in Shinran's life, we are looking at his passing. So in the parable, the 7th phase, it goes like this. Upon reaching the island, the sailor is overjoyed for having reached this goal. He is immensely grateful for the previous phase of swimming with ease, which is full of joy, assurance, clarity, and the desire to engage with others. However, that phase was not meant to last forever, for his physical stamina had its limits. That is why he was overjoyed when he reached the island, which made him feel perfectly safe and at peace. It further assured him that he would now be able to move to the next phase of his journey. And that next phase was to carry out the concern that he had for the welfare of his buddies, who had also fallen overboard from the same boat. With his newly acquired capabilities afforded by reaching the island and his access to a boat, he again sets out onto the ocean to locate his sailor friends and anyone else who could benefit from his help. So I want to talk about what the island symbolizes, and that it symbolizes the birth in the Pure Land upon death. For Shinran, this took place on the 20th day of November in the second year of Kocho. Today, Nishihonganji calculates this to be January 16th, 1263, adjusting to a Western calendar. Well, the Higashi Honganji maintains it to be on November 28th, 1262. Shinran died in Kyoto after having spent the last 28 years of his life there. His life in Kyoto was supported financially by his followers in Kanto and by his younger brother, Jinyu. Shinran's youngest daughter, Kakushinni, third son, Matsukata no Nyudo, and two disciples, Kenchibo and Seishinbo, were at his bedside when he passed away at his brother Jinyu's temple. He was cremated the next day, and his ashes were deposited at his grave in the Otani area, the east side of Kyoto. So he is said to have died in the middle part of Tokyo, and then he was cremated at Otani area, which is on the east side of Kyoto, and where he was close to where he was ordained. And his he has his gravesite there. So the Kakushinni, his youngest daughter, immediately notified Eshinni, Shinran's wife, who was residing in Echigo, and about the passing of her father and Eshinni's husband. And so Eshinni replied right away, and in the letter she wrote, "I received your letter. There is no doubt that your father was born in the Pure Land, and there is no need for me to repeat this." As if I'm sure she was saddened, but there we see this kind of firm faith that her husband had gone on to the Pure Land. So this firm faith in the Pure Land was also expressed by Shinran himself in one of his last letters to a disciple, in which he shares his thoughts about the Pure Land. "My life has now reached the fullness of its years. It is certain that I will go to birth in the Pure Land before you. So without fail, I will await you there." So the synopsis, I want to, Shinran talks about, he expresses his firm faith in Pure Land. And so now I want to move on to talking about what the larger sutra says about the Pure Land. And much of this is well known, but I want to go over it again. So Bodhisattva Dharmakara established the Pure Land to facilitate the attainment of Buddhahood for all beings. To gain one's birth in the Pure Land, the aspirants are required to carry out various practices to reach a range of spiritual levels. For Shinran, it was Shinjin, realization and entrusting. So once born in the Pure Land, the aspirants engaged in various practices to become Buddhas themselves. However, for Shinran, these practices were not required since the aspirants attained Buddhahood immediately. This is important. This is what, we'll get back to this later. And as Buddhas, they then return to the Saha world to help lead others to realize Shinjin and eventually to Buddhahood. So, so the idea that one becomes a Buddha immediately, that is one of his Shinran's distinct teaching. And I will mention that again later. So about the Pure Land, some basics about the Pure Land. Amida does not judge whether an aspirant is born there or not. He's not a judge in that sense. Birth is determined by one's karmic actions, by availing oneself to Amida's compassion. Second, the Pure Land is not the same as heavens in the 6 realms of samsara. Okay? Heaven in Buddhism is within samsara. Pure Land is beyond it. Amida's Pure Land is one of the innumerable Pure Lands that are found in the cosmos. There are many Pure Lands, but Amida's is called Sukhavati and is one of them. Bodhisattva Dharmakara wished to help save all beings by establishing a Pure Land, which would be a more conducive environment for realizing Buddhahood. The Bodhisattva raised 48 vows stipulating the conditions for his Pure Land. And the most important vow for Shinran is, of course, the 18th vow, referred to in Shin Buddhism as primal vow. In Jodo Shinshu, especially in Honganji, we emphasize the primal vow. When we say primal vow, it means the 18th vow. But actually, in the early phase of understanding in the sutras, primal vow doesn't, the vow Hongan in Honganji literally means more like previous vow that was made previously, and that's the original meaning. But in Nishi Honganji and Jodo Shinshu, when we say primal vow, we're talking mostly about the 18th vow out of the 48. So it goes like this: if when I attain Buddhahood, sentient beings in the lands of the 10 directions who sincerely and joyfully entrust themselves to me, desire to be born in my land and call my name even 10 times, should not be born there. May I not attain perfect enlightenment. Excluded, however, are those who commit the 5 gravest offenses and abuse the right dharma. So in this narrative, what we call the sacred story, so after making the vows and engaging in numerous practices for innumerable kalpas, many eons, the Bodhisattva succeeded in establishing the Pure Land 10 eons ago, and now dwells there as Amida Buddha. So this is the narrative that you should all know, and what I'm calling the sacred story. Now, I want to emphasize one important point, and that is that especially for Shinran, of course, the birth takes place after death, and of course there are doctrinal debates as to whether birth takes place even in this life. But my own understanding is that birth in the Pure Land takes place after death or upon death. And so for Shinran, birth in the Pure Land is assured by Shinjin realization and entrusting. So I'm sure that we've talked about this many times, so that's clear that for no other practices, meditation, rigorous practice, these are not required. Ultimately, Shinjin. This guarantee contributed to the sailor feeling assured that he would definitely reach the island. As discussed last month, this assurance then contributed to his greater joy, greater clarity, and a greater desire to engage with and serve others within the life of gratitude. So I just wanted to emphasize that, though we're talking about the Pure Land, what is important just as much, and if not more, is the fact that this assurance of birth in the Pure Land contributes to our feeling a greater sense of joy, clarity, and a desire to engage with others. And so it's the quality of life that is important as we are living, as we saw in the phase 6, when he is swimming with ease, with greater joy and greater clarity and greater engagement with others. So now I want to talk about a topic that may not be discussed very much. And that is the question of, well, how do we actually gain birth? Actually, even Shinran and the rest of the Shin traditions have not explained this topic in any ways that can satisfy many seekers in today's world who are, informed by scientific thinking and worldview. It's taking on faith that we will be reborn. But for those of us like myself who want to have a more of a rational understanding, we need to kind of look into this deeper, and this is what I'm trying to do here. And so traditional Buddhism as a whole, it talks about 4 ways of birth, 4 kinds of birth. One is egg. As I can see, I don't think any of us were born through an egg. Womb is the way all of us were born, not from moisture. And the 4th one is what is called in Sanskrit, Upapaduka Yoni, or Kesho in Sino-Japanese, and it's translated transformative, metamorphosis, or spontaneous. It's a kind of a special kind of birth. So we have 4 kinds of birth, and the birth in the Pure Land constitutes the 4th kind, referred to as either transformative, metamorphic, or spontaneous birth. So that's the kind of explanation that at least I have found, and there's not much more. So in the past, such questions was not asked very much because it was taken on faith. This is as it should be, as this part of Shin Buddhism is a matter of belief or faith. So if you have no problem with, the just simply birth, then that's fine. But for those of us who want to know more, maybe rationally, the following is my thoughts on this. So, and often traditionally, birth is considered inconceivable or beyond conception or rational understanding, right? I mean, you've heard this before. Pure Land, we talk about, but it's beyond conception, inconceivable. Even at times, actually, Amida is inconceivable in some sense. Okay, so however, I feel that there is a teaching which is rational in nature, taught by Shinran, and it can help many of us to accept and entrust in the fundamental teachings related to our birth in the Pure Land. And this has to do with what Shinran calls Goshiki, translated karmic consciousness, and name and light. Well, name and light you have heard before. So this is a quotation from his main writing, True Teachings, Practice, and Realization. It says, the karmic consciousness of true and real Shinjin is our inner cause. The name and light, our father and mother, are our outer cause. When the inner and outer causes merge, one realizes the true body in the fulfilled land, which is the Pure Land. So here there's a karmic consciousness. And so thus the karmic consciousness of the personal Shinjin is the inner cause and merges with the name and light, which are considered the outer cause, and which represent the workings of Amida and ultimately of oneness. So name and light is of course represents the workings of Amida and the ultimately of oneness. And this takes place in this life in the experience of Shinjin. So, and this then assures the person of Shinjin that he or she will attain birth, or as Shinran explains, realize the true body in the Pure Land. So with this notion of karmic consciousness may strike some people as maybe like a soul. Perhaps you can say a soul, but he uses this word, and I have found this personally to be consoling, because I'm a type that wants to understand more rationally how do we really are born in the Pure Land. And so we have, Amida's working represented by name and light, but through the experience of Shinjin, we become one with name and light, or one with Amida as we live in this life. But because we have our body, we're not fully in one with Amida's working. So that's so now having said so, I wanted to focus on this notion of merging with something greater, which in our tradition we use words like Amida and oneness. And so I will cite two others other than Shinran, examples of a metaphorical expression, but Shinran actually has a metaphorical expression which I find to be in keeping with what I just explained. So in the poem, the hymns of the Pure Land Masters, he says, rivers of blind passions, on entering the ocean, the great compassionate vow of unhindered light filling the 10 quarters, become one in taste with the sea of wisdom. So river of blind passion, that represents us. And in our Shinjin and realization and trusting, we become one with the ocean. So here we become in one taste with that sea of ocean. So I very much appreciate this kind of a metaphorical, poetic expression that allows me to feel that that I become one with something that is greater, which we call Amida. Now, there's another metaphor which is not necessarily talked about by Shinran, but it's a metaphor that I appreciate. I've always appreciated. Each of us is like a wave. The wave was born from the ocean to become a discrete wave, but was never separated from the ocean, for it could not exist without the ocean. So once a discrete wave, it seeks to reach its full potential as a wave. Plus, each wave exhibits its unique shape and vitality that other waves cannot replicate. So after becoming a full wave, each wave becomes smaller as it approaches the shore. Finally, the wave disappears as a discrete wave from the surface of the ocean. However, that doesn't mean that the wave has been eliminated, but it has now become part of the ocean. And that wave, as part of the ocean, plays a role in producing the next set of waves, which begets the next set of waves indefinitely into the future. So, and the third metaphor is the well-known story that I have always liked, The Fall of Freddie the Leaf, A Story of Life for All Ages by Professor Leo Buscaglia, who taught at University of Southern California. But it's not known, this became very famous, and I'm sure many of you have read this. And he actually, well, he was raised a Catholic, but later in his life, he took great interest in Buddhism. And this is something that is now well known. He even went to Kyoto to study Buddhism. And I have the entire story in the appendix, so you can check it out there if you wish. So I want to summarize the key component. Freddie is born as a leaf on a huge tree in the spring. In the autumn, Freddie, together with other leaves, form a shade for the young and the elderly who come to the park to play or relax. As fall arrives, Freddie and the leaves turn into beautiful fall colors, but soon the leaves began to be blown off by the cold wind. Freddie's friend Daniel says, it's time for the leaves to change their home. Some people call it dying. Will I die? Freddie asked. Yes, Daniel answered. Everything dies. I'm afraid of dying, said Freddie. Daniel replies by saying that we're all afraid of things we don't know, and reminds Freddie that he was not afraid when spring came, spring became summer, or when summer became fall, and that changes are natural. Daniel asks, will we return in spring? Daniel replies, I don't know, but life will. Life lasts forever, and we're part of it. A bit later, Daniel fell from the tree with a smile. Freddie was now the only leaf left. After the first snow fell the next morning, the wind also took Freddie from the tree. It didn't hurt at all as he landed on the soft snow. He saw the whole tree for the first time and remembered Daniel's words that life lasts forever. Freddie soon closed his eyes as he fell asleep. Within the ground, trees and roots, the plans for new leaves to sprout in the spring had begun. Life continues on. Okay, we'll stop there and okay, Igor?
Questions? Yes, we will have about 10-15 minutes for questions and comments on this first part, discussion one. As usual, you can use the chat box for your questions, or you can raise your hand physically or with the Zoom feature at the bottom of your screen. When Dr. Tanaka acknowledges you, please unmute and speak clearly and succinctly. For those using the chat box, questions will be selected from the chat box as time allows and read out by me.
Okay, don't hold your breath. Okay, Denise, unmute yourself.
Yeah. Can I talk about the parable of the sailor?
Yes.
Okay. No, I'm just kind of wondering. It's almost like the sailor reaches the land and just touches the land and then goes back.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, what sort of a time frame do you perceive that to be?
Well, I haven't been there. So, but
I mean, like in terms of like staying in the Pure Land, but it seemed like the compassion was so great to return to
yeah,
help his buddies.
yeah. Uh, and as I will talk in the second half, that one becomes immediately a Buddha in the pure Shinran's understanding of the Pure Land narrative, and then as a Buddha, you can become a Bodhisattva, or as a Buddha. I mean, this is a little blurred, but you know, Bodhisattva Buddhas are enlightened beings. So you are essentially enlightened beings with greater capacity. And so I would think that, as you kind of hinted, that the desire of compassion is so great that you immediately return to save others. And so that's how I understand it. And I think that yeah, that's how I would that's how I think that the desire to help others is so great. And this point is very interesting for people who are, you know, many of us who've been when we talk about heaven or the eternal land, we never come back. It's many years ago, I gave a talk in San Francisco to a totally, you know, regular audience, and I got so much reaction from people who came up to the podium to ask questions about returning to the Sahara realm, because it's really foreign in the Judeo-Christian conception. And so this is what makes the Pure Land Buddhism this part differs from what the other religions think about in terms of the heaven or eternal land. So Denise, I don't. Is that that would be my response? So
Yeah, I would kind of hoped that we would have the choice of returning quickly.
oh yeah. Oh, so
yeah.
that choice is, again, I was going to also make comment that, you know, you have choice. You can choose to spend time with your loved ones, as I will be talking about. And again, you know, this whole discussion of Pure Land is on a different plane, and we have to cultivate a sentiment for it. And anyway, so let's go to anybody else, please. Well, since we don't have immediate response. Oh, okay, Sharon.
Oh, hi, Sensei.
Hi.
My question is, for the karmic consciousness,
Yes.
how is that different or similar to Buddha nature?
Well, I would say it's essentially it's essentially the same. That's I think I probably mentioned it briefly when we talked about Shinjin enlightenment, Shinjin awakening, realization. And so Buddha nature, when it's revealed, it's a form of awakening. And same with Shinjin. Shinjin is a realization. That's why I've been calling it realization and entrusting. So I would say that and Shinran says the great Shinjin is Buddha nature. So he equates it in his writings. Although there are some debates as to what Shinran really meant by Buddha nature, that Buddha nature within, but he uses that term. So I think that in a larger context, in a sense, to answer a question, it's essentially the same. And it's not no. Some people think that in Jodo Shinshu we don't talk about the Buddha nature that is pristine and pure within, because it conflicts with our notion that we are, foolish and imperfect and bombu. But we're talking about two different levels. So we are bombu with all these, afflictions and gas that's covering over, but with the support of the other power of the Amida's working, we, in a way, we allow Buddha nature to surface and become Shinjin. And so, okay. I wanted to also, since if there are no other comments for now, I wanted to.
There is a
good.
question, Sensei.
Oh, good. Okay, read it.
From Dexter. Are the Pure Lands of other Pure Land sects follow Shin thinking?
There other Pure Lands follow Shin thinking. Well, the other Pure Lands are, for example, a realm called the Abhirati, eternal happiness of Buddha Akshobhya. So there are other Pure Lands and other Buddhas, but they really didn't become a large school or denomination, and so they are talked about in scriptures, and so we cannot really talk about what followers of these other Pure Lands or other Buddhas feel. But essentially, I think it's the same concept that Pure Lands, what makes a place a Pure Land? There's one qualification, one requirement. That is that you have to have a Buddha there. Wherever you have a Buddha, that realm is called a Pure Land. That's another purified land. And so there are multiple Pure Lands. And essentially, I think to answer that question, I think it's very similar. The aim is for people in the Saha realm to be reborn in those realms. But Amitabha became the dominant, source of faith and following in East Asia, and so it has the largest following and all the various teachings. I don't know if okay, so okay, Denise.
Sorry, I've forgotten how to raise my hand normally. So
okay, no,
on the
that's
screen.
fine.
You spoke of true body.
Yeah.
Now, would that refer to self or oneness, or am I looking at this wrong?
Well, I think in that quote, true body is, I think all we can say is that it's the eternal body, or the purified body that's is what we would have upon birth in a Pure Land. And so we can I think it's not so important whether it's true or not, or so if we are to be born in a Pure Land, we have to have a body that's separate from what we have, which is subject to decay, and but it is a body that is beyond that. So actually, come to think of it, I have never really thought about it, closely until but essentially it's enlightened body, the awakened body, a body of the Buddha, and so that's how I would see it. It's no longer subject to impermanence. Okay, are there? I wanted to, since when Igor was introducing my my segment from the past, or in the introduction, some maybe it wasn't the voice was didn't come through well, so I just, and also wanted to emphasize how, you know, when we talk about the Pure Land, it's again, it's a matter of, you know, well, faith and belief, but for those who have found solace and comfort in the teachings, it gave them much assurance in this life to know that when this life is over, that I am enveloped in something that is, you know, that gives you comfort. I think that word comfort just keeps cropping up, and Professor Miyagi had, in my view, is such a firm confidence, and as I relate in that episode, that, you know, whenever he comes to IBS, he goes right to the Buddhist altar and, you know, very loudly says, I will do my best to teach the students well, so that when I see you in the Pure Land, I will have no regrets, that I will feel. So it's that kind of of assurance or firm faith that that when I was at that age 35 years ago, felt a sense of respect, and also a bit of envy that he has such a faith like that. And so I wanted to relay that as I talked about Pure Land. Okay. Oh, what happened? I think, oh, okay.
Sensei, there is a question from Rod.
Yeah.
Why is there such detailed discussion for this topic? Isn't it enough that we have comfort in this life, or are we trying to prove the unprovable?
Well, wow, that's a tough, because for some of us, we want to know, want to have a better appreciation of what happens after death. And Shinran talked about this in depth. And so I think that, you know, some people are fine without knowing about what happens afterwards. But religion is one place in all of our, you know, realms in which we live that really addresses this question. And also as a Buddhist, the ultimate goal is to become a Buddha. And from that perspective, Shinjin awakening, which is, as far as I'm concerned, you know, that is very, very important, and it's almost ultimate, but it's not Buddhahood. And Pure Land, in our birth in the Pure Land, is equal to Buddhahood. And so and then we continue to practice the Bodhisattva idea of benefiting others and being of benefit to others. And that's a kind of realm or worldview that I appreciate. And I mentioned this in the outline as well. It's a better, for me, a better notion than thinking that after I die, I'm buried, you know, it's over and done. I'm buried 6 feet under. Or in Japan, they talk about, well, you just turn into ashes. You know, that kind of a perspective of what happens after death is not appealing to me. And that I find solace and comfort in what the Buddhist tradition has offered. So to answer Rod's question, that it's also talked about in the Buddhist scriptures. Now, you may not feel that it's important, and but it's important in the ultimate sense for some people, and also have knowing, what happens after death gives us assurance. I think I mentioned that already. It provides a sense of assurance, and I think we also want to know, well, what happens to our loved ones after they pass on, and I try to address that in the second half. So I appreciate what your question, but also I would like for you to appreciate what I just said. And I think we have to have a middle path about, not talking about life after death at all, or talking too much about life after. But as this course went on, much of it dealt with how we lead our lives here. But I think that the life after death is something that that consummates our spiritual journey. Yeah, that's it. It's the journey, and it consummates. And so, but thanks for your question. Okay, so I think we'll go on to. Oh, okay, Kate.
Oh, hi, thanks. I was just wondering if in this lifetime, is there a way that we can have like a sense if we are experiencing Shinjin or not experiencing it? I mean, is it like kind of you do your best but it remains a pipe dream? Or are there actual signs like, oh, I can see I'm making progress in that way? Like if I feel greater joy, greater clarity, greater gratitude.
Yeah. No, I would say that if you're making that progress, if you see progress, you're in the stream. And I emphasized, and when I talked about Shinjin realization and entrusting, one of the quote evidence of that is that you have made a concerted effort, or you are making a concerted effort to understand and listen to the teachings, because that is an indication that Amida's mind has reached you and generated an yearning and desire to learn. And that is one of the qualities of Shinjin. So so please yeah, is
that's great, very clear, thank you very much.
And actually at the very end I mentioned the fact that one of the uniqueness, or maybe distinctiveness, and some people may say it's even heretical to say what I've just said, because you won't hear from a lot of other people who talk about this. But I feel quite confident that in our context, in your context, that we can think of Shinjin in that way, that if you have an yearning that's been sustained for a number of years, and sincerity is important, and that is an indication that you have been embraced. So flippantly, I may say something like, since you've taken the 10 classes, you are evidence of showing great desire to learn. But don't get too attached to all this too much, though, saying, oh, now, I've taken the 10 courses, so please don't go around saying to other ministers, especially, that you took Ken Tanaka's course and he says that you're, that's an evidence of Shinjin. Know that. So, because anyway, you get the point.
Yeah.
But sincere searching and the progress, comparative progress, is an indication. And okay. So let's go to
Ken, there's another hand up.
Oh, there is.
Kathy.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Maybe go ahead, please. I
just hadn't lowered my hand, so I lowered it.
Oh, maybe you can ask again at the second half. Okay. All right. Okay, so the teaching that we become Buddha upon birth. So reaching the island in our parable symbolizes the attainment of full awakening, that is Buddhahood, or birth in the Pure Land at the end of life. As previously noted, Shinran, the two, birth in the Pure Land and becoming Buddha, take place simultaneously. Because when a personal Shinjin dies, he or she is born in the Pure Land and immediately becomes a Buddha. So this teaching is a departure from the earlier Pure Land teachings in India, China, and Korea, and elsewhere, which taught that those born there engaged in further practices to reach Buddhahood. Okay. The key to Shinran's teaching lies in our Shinjin realization and entrusting in this life. As we discuss in detail above, in Shinjin, we merge with the name and light of Amida, so we can say that while alive, we partially merge with oneness or the realm of enlightenment. However, because we still have the limitations of the physical body, we cannot yet become Buddhas, full Buddhas. Then once we are liberated from the body upon death, we fully merge with the oneness and become Buddhas. Okay, so that was my a quick discussion on the fact that we immediately become Buddhas upon birth. Now, on this topic of returning from the Pure Land, and Shinran says in his poem, those who reach the Pure Land of happiness return to the evil world of the five defilements, where like Buddha Shakyamuni, they benefit sentient beings without limit. So this teaching of returning from the salvific realm is clearly not found in Christianity, Islam, or Judaism. And this is something that I talked about during the Q&A session. So I think I won't discuss that anymore. Now, when we say returning from the Pure Land, there are two perspectives. One is myself, first person, going to the Pure Land, I self return. And the other is that other people that we have known, thinking, feeling and sensing that they have returned to this world while I'm still in this world. So I want to first talk about my returning, the first person one. So our spiritual journey does not end with the Pure Land. The attainment of complete enlightenment of Buddhahood, in keeping with Mahayana Bodhisattva's spirit of benefiting with others. We go freely to the unenlightened realms to assist in the ongoing effort to liberate others. When we return to the Saha realm, Shinran calls it the phase of returning, or Genso. So Shinran doesn't really discuss exactly how we return. So in that sense, in my view, as Shin Buddhists, we can take the liberty of imagination, of imagining it. So, and again, this part is not talked in the tradition, but I have felt that we can do this to fill in that part that is really not talked about. If you want some kind of, better, clear answers. So we can imagine all the possible forms we would like to take. After all, as bodhisattvas, we are endowed with any and all skillful means to do so. I imagine returning and taking form as a caring first-grade teacher, or even a bird with melodious chirps, an enlightened politician, if there are any. I believe so, enlightened politicians. A soothing breeze, or a Buddhist nun, all dedicated in each birth to contributing to some small ways to assisting others toward their enlightenment. So I would like to ask you to imagine, how would you like to be returned? And you can, you can change forms, even within an hour, perhaps, or even a day, or even a lifetime. I mean, it's all realm of imagining. And I think this can fill in the blanks. Now, the second perspective, that is that other people that we have known who passed on before us returning to this realm. So in Shin Buddhist tradition, we often hear Dharma talks about those who pass away and how they have returned from the Pure Land to impact them in very different ways. So you hear this a lot, especially in Japan, that that experiences that one have had, and you sense the presence of people who have gone before you and have returned in that form or in that context. Shinran saw his teacher Honen as a manifestation of Amida. And so in a way, this is not really far-fetched, because, returning, you are part of Amida's great compassion. So this is a point that maybe I didn't make before, is that when you return, you are, in a way, in a larger context, you are part of Amida's great compassion. You have joined because you have merged with light and life. You have joined with oneness, and you're returning, just like the wave returning, and then taking form as another wave. So Shinran's, so I too have considered my own important teachers as Genso or returning bodhisattvas, like Professor Miyagi and Reverend Kusada. So in a way, as I think back to the think of them, for me, they are like the Genso bodhisattvas, returning bodhisattvas. But because I must admit that because of my Bonbu nature, that perhaps I don't feel that all the time. I mean, there is always that, this has to do with all the things that I'm talking about today. You probably feel a sense of bit of skepticism, a bit of questioning, but that is to be expected, because we're a Bonbus, but that's okay. You can have your doubt, you can have your skepticism, but that's okay. But if you're going to have any kind of imagination about anything, I'd rather have this. And this kind of makes our lives richer and fuller. So that's something, please keep that in mind. So now with my deceased family members, I feel their presence whenever I'm involved with something, I'm sorry, I cannot see this. So the screen makes it hard to see, that it blocks it out. But anyway, so my immediate family, this is how I experience it. Okay, this is not saying that you have to experience it this way, but one way that I feel that their presence, for example, is my maternal grandmother is present when I see a beautiful flower, something that she always loved. Whenever she saw a beautiful flower, and she always said, "Oh, kirei ne," and so that sound, that exclamation, that exhilaration that she felt, I sense it whenever I see, especially a beautiful flower and plants. My mother is present when I hear a funny joke, or when I tell one to make others laugh, for she relished humor. One that I remember the most, and it's a very simple one. I was complaining to her one time that, for my wife, I'm number 3. For her, number 1 are her children. Number 2, her Steinway piano. And I'm number 3, you know? And you know what she said? She says, that's not bad. That's not bad, you know? And I still remember that. I mean, it's you know, anyway, my grandfather is present whenever I see an elephant or a lion, for he told me the story as to which of these animals would win when they fought over and over again. I was only maybe 3 or 4, and I was always asking him to tell that story. I knew the answer. He would say the elephant will, of course, win. But I wanted to hear over and over again. And even then, I felt, gee, he sure is patient. You know, he sure is patient to tell the story over and over again. And just to, because I had asked him. And my father is present whenever I muster up enough effort to persevere to complete a project or an assignment, for he was a very hard worker. Actually, I didn't get along with him very well most of my life. And there were times where, I wouldn't speak to him and I think we all have, not all. I hope not. I hope that you didn't have that kind of relationship. But now that, at the latter part of our lives, we reconciled and we were on speaking terms, and, but now that he's been gone, 5 or 6, 7 years, I really appreciated the fact that he worked 8 days a week. Maybe it's a little too much, but the fact that I remember is that he's a hard worker, and I'm always cognizant not to overdo it myself, but at the same time that perseverance is something that I think I have acquired, and in my view, I think it's helped me. So whenever I work hard, when I persevere, my father is present. So in these ways, I feel that they are with me and rooting me on. With their presence in my life, they are for me my Genso, or returning bodhisattvas. So these family members, teachers, and friends are for me, again, Genso bodhisattvas. The presence that I experience is because we are all part of this inconceivable oneness that encompasses this life and beyond. And when my present life ends and I am freed from this body, I believe that I will meet them again. Of course, as a Bonbu, I am not always able to believe this completely, but also feel that this belief is better than thinking that when we die, we simply become ashes or be buried 6 feet under. It is for this reason that I find comfort and am inspired by the passage in a smaller Pure Land Sutra or Amida Sutra that reminds us that we shall meet again. He says, Shariputra, those sentient beings who hear of that Pure Land should aspire to be born there, because they will be able to meet in one location the good people of virtues. So the good people of virtues represent the loved ones. So in closing the final class, let me say a few words. The birth in the Pure Land represents the realization of the ultimate goal of all Buddhists, that of enlightenment or Buddhahood. So please keep this in mind, that especially in Mahayana Buddhism, our goal is to become Buddhas. So this is the consummation of our quest to find the meaning of what it means to have been born a human being. And, earlier before the class, some of you were talking, chatting about how the comment that I made that some people in the world never think about, life after death, or even the meaning of their lives. So as Buddhists, one thing we can say is that what is important is a realization of either Shinjin awakening realization or becoming Buddhist. And what that means is to really come to grips with what is really important in having been born a human being, what it has meant to live this life. For most of us, we're fortunate to have lived past 50 years old, and we have experienced so much. And yes, we have had suffering, but at the end, we have come to some kind of appreciation and understanding that is really based on the teachings. So, okay, so number 2, this is exemplified in Shinran, whose Shinjin realization and entrusting led him to have a firm faith in his birth in the Pure Land. He also shared a vision in which he would be able to meet with people whom he had known and to work for the betterment of others in the phase of returning. So the point that I want to emphasize is that it's not simply going to Pure Land and enjoying eternal happiness for yourself, but continuing to exercise the Bodhisattva ideal of being benefit to others, because you have become part of the force of compassion. And that, in a way, would, for me at least, is a way that compassion will be a reality which I would like to be part of henceforth. In the sutra narrative of the Pure Land and our birth and returning from it is if it's too mythic for you to easily accept, the narrative of that we read in that is talked about in the Pure Land Sutras, if it's too story-like, too fairy tale-like, too mythic, and then maybe consider the metaphors that we discussed, those of Shinran's poem about the river and the ocean, or the wave and the ocean, or the story of the Freddy the leaf. They kind of give you a direction as to what it means to merge and become one with something greater. Many people in the world are not concerned about death and the afterlife, but for those of us who are, what Shin Buddhism teaches is a source of enormous comfort. I choose it over the nihilistic view that there is only the option of being buried 6 feet under or turning into ashes. I choose to embrace a vision that there lies the realm of Amida and oneness that embraces us here and now and beyond. Such an outlook renders in this life a greater sense of joy, assurance, clarity, and the desire to engage with others in the spirit of gratitude. Okay, I'm gonna, I think, stop here, and we'll do this at the latter part of the second Q&A. Okay, so Kathy, you had a question at the end of the first half during the Q&A. Did you want to ask it now?
No, you had answered it. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Just for reference, what was it?
Oh, let me see here. Let's see.
Okay, well, if you think of it, let us come back. Okay, Todd. Oh,
About Shinjin
okay. Kathy?
and
You
how
got
to
it?
realize Shinjin.
Oh, how to realize?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The signs of Shinjin.
Oh,
You asked.
signs of Shinjin.
Yeah.
Okay, Todd?
Thank you, Sensei. I had a question about, as you give examples about Genso, you always speak of it in very personal terms. So it's always often regarding those who you had very close karmic connections with.
Mhm.
But shouldn't Gento be more expanded more to those we may not be aware of close
Oh.
personal karmic connections? I
Yeah,
mean, for instance, like the bodhisattva, we may view as a bodhisattva those who expose our three poisons within ourselves to help us.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So in the parable, I talked about how the sailor returns to go look for his buddies, but I also mentioned, but anyone else. And so definitely, and then you even go further to talk, look at people who may not be a pleasant person to you initially, those who criticize you or who make comments to force you to look at yourself more objectively. Yeah, so yeah, definitely as a bodhisattva, you have no strings attached, you know, but I was emphasizing kind of the you know, the people that we know, because it does say in the sutras that people with whom you have had connections, the term is uyen, and so, but I always feel like you that, you know, we shouldn't limit ourselves to only to those people that you know, to your family or friends or your clan or your you know, same people of your same country. So the Buddhism is very you know, as emphasizes the equality. We treat. Okay, thank you. Okay, Martin. Oh, Michael, sorry. Your last name is Martin. Unmute yourself.
I
Michael.
just remembered. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I had a question about in part of the largest sutra where it mentions the two kinds of birth in the Pure Land, womb-like birth and transformative birth. So womb-like birth, I was imagining related to birth in the borderland.
So
transformative birth.
when you say the two, can you say two, womb? Okay, womb-like. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So your question is that
it's basically the two types of birth in the Pure Land.
Yeah.
Womb-like birth, transformative birth is obviously total
yeah.
Shinjin. You got
Okay.
Shinjin.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, in the Pure Land tradition, especially in the sutras, there are references to like the womb castle, the borderland, and these terms that refer to something like a purgatory. You're not quite there fully in the true Pure Land. So Shinran uses the word fulfilled land, and so those who have true Shinjin will be born in the fulfilled true land, and those with doubt will be born more like in the purgatory. But the important thing is that those who are born in the pure, womb palace and borderland, and they can always eventually be born in the true land.
Right.
But see, again, this is has to do with the sutras, which and Shinran's view is that this gets a little complicated, but because we don't spend much, if you have Shinjin, you immediately become Buddhas. So I guess, yeah, if you don't, while Shinran doesn't perhaps talk about it too much, if you don't have full Shinjin, that you will still be born in the realm of the Pure Land. So I think that would be the way I would answer your question if I did answer. So Michael.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So there is a distinction that is made, but Shinran says, well, probably his attitude is that, well, don't even think about, the borderland. Just go to the real McCoy.
Yeah.
Okay,
thank you.
Jennifer.
Okay, this, I don't know, this is a little off, but okay, so we're talking about Buddhism and stuff, and I think just my belief is that this isn't limited. You don't have to be a Buddhist and call it Shinran and call it the words we call it, I think, to get to where whatever the Pure Land is. And I just, for one example, and I have a whole bunch, but just for one example, a good friend of mine, he was a kahu, which is a minister here in Hawaii, not a Buddhist, but like Hawaiian cultural minister, and then also believed in kind of a Christianity sort of thing, but more Hawaiian practices. Really, really awesome person, helped tons of people, had his own sufferings and stuff. But when he died, before he died, he had told me that he was going to come. He would come. He'd be able to do like what you were talking about, to use your imagination, a bird, whatever. He said he was going to be a Kamehameha butterfly, which is one of our indigenous butterflies here, or native butterflies here. And about, I don't know, 2 weeks after he died, he actually didn't tell me that. He told my brother that that's what he was going to do. So 2 weeks after he died, I was out cleaning my yard with my son, and this Kamehameha butterfly, I didn't even know. My son said, "Mom, stop. There's a butterfly on your shoulder." And I said, "What?" And I was been thinking about him, Kahu Ryan. I was thinking about him in that moment when I was, I was missing him. He had just passed away recently. And I looked, and there was this butterfly on my shoulder. I mean, that's an unusual thing, right? And I tried to shoo it away. It would not leave me. So I took it and put it somewhere else and continued to clean the yard. And it came back and landed on my shoulder. And I mean, this kept happening. So finally I just said, "Ryan, is that you?" You know? And maybe it was. Okay, one more, just one more. My very good friend from high school who passed away right before COVID hit. We were at his service. He was a Seventh-day
Adventist,
and very devout into pastorhood and stuff like that. And I mean, he even came to me once in my office, wanted to make sure I believed in Jesus so I could be born again. He was, I mean, that devout. When we were putting his ashes in the niche in Makawao, actually before, when we were singing for him and stuff before, this bee came and landed right on my heart. And I was like, "Oh my God, there's a bee on me." I didn't want to shoot away. But then later, we were in a completely different area, and we were all singing after we put his ashes in. We were singing Hawaiian. We were all his classmates, and we were singing and really missing him and crying, really feeling emotional. I looked down, and the bee was on me again, on my heart. And I said, "Oh my God, JT, is that you?" I mean, I've had these experiences over and over again. Lately, there's been a bird coming and singing to me every morning at sunrise and every night at sundown. And I've been really missing my mother, and it was just her birthday 2 weeks ago. She died 19 years ago. And I swear it's my mom. So, and she was Jewish. So I think this, I mean, I might sound all woo-woo out here. I've had so many spiritual experiences. I think this transcends religion.
Sure.
Yeah, I just really do.
I think that, you know, that sounds great to me. And, you know, I think in a way, you're happier and luckier for being able to be open to that. And like I kept saying, you know, rather than feeling that there's pitch black, nothing, just ashes and buried 6 feet under. I mean, separate from, I mean, I would not like to live in that way, and to realize that there is something that is beyond our conception, and things that are, you know, not fully understandable, but there is, you know, their presence can be felt, and you are luckier and happier for it. Okay, thank you for sharing for that. All right.
Sensei, there are questions in chat.
Okay, can you?
From Miyuki, which Reverend Miyagi was your mentor? Is he still a resident minister or still teaches at IBS? Does his son or sons also ministers for BCA? Yeah,
well, I mean, his son has retired as a, and then there's a grandson as well. And so we're talking about Professor Kakuye Miyagi, who passed on, you know, a number of years ago. So yeah, he has a son who's he had 3 sons in North America who were ministers, all ministers, and then Takeshi Miyaji, who is now a minister at Southern Alameda County Buddhist Church, you know, who is, I really have great hopes, and he's already a great, wonderful minister and wonderful teacher, and I'm hoping great things for him. I'm sure his grandfather will be very happy. Okay, what's the second?
There is more. There's a question from Dexter. Since we interact with many non-Shin Buddhists, how different is this Shin perspective of afterlife compared to Theravada, Zen, Tibetan, etc.? Thank you.
Well, I mean, I would say that, you know, Theravada people don't really talk much about afterlife. So that's pretty clear. And Zen people really don't do as much, but Dogen, the founder of Soto Zen, talked about how we are embraced by myriad of things. So in a way, he hints at a sense of oneness, and that we are all part of this, you know, oneness that we are. So I think, but both of these, especially the Theravadans, they're very much this world oriented, and have no teachings, as far as I am aware of teachings beyond death. And so I would say, when talking to these other people of other schools, would focus on Shinjin realization and trusting that it is an awakening in this life, and they will understand, because there is in Zen there's an attainment called Kensho, which is, as I discussed before, is similar to Shinjin. And then in Theravada Buddhism of Southeast Asia, they talk about a level called stream enterer, and that is, in Shinran says that Shinjin is like that. So, but I'm afraid that they will not have such an elaborate and extensive discussion about life after death as we do in Pure Land. So in some sense, I feel like, especially Shinran has both teachings for this life, as we have discussed, with a focus on Shinjin, but also a kind of a vision about life after death. And so it's a total package, and so which I'm, you know, appreciative of. Okay, so another one?
Yes, can you take another one, Sensei?
Yeah.
A question from June. It has a few parts. I think you already addressed the first part. She is asking, there are many Pure Lands, is one better than the other? Then another part of the question is, when we die and lose our corporeal bodies, so we attain Buddha nature? And then the last part is, do we choose to become bodhisattvas?
No, you attain Buddhahood. Buddha nature is a potential to become Buddha. So you actually you attain the result. So, okay, so that should be clear. And the second one is the question about,
do we choose to become bodhisattvas?
Yeah, well, in a way, technically, if you become a Buddha, you already inherit the bodhisattva spirit. So I would think that you would want to engage with others and be supportive of others. And but as we were saying earlier, that you may not want to come back right away. You may want to enjoy the Pure Land or go to other realms. The other thing I wanted to emphasize that it says you return to the other realms, unenlightened realms. So it's not just this Saha world, but there are millions of other realms in this cosmology. So when we say returning, it's not just to others will go to other realms which require their help. So I think that it's almost automatic. It's inherent in becoming Buddha to want to help others. But to what intensity you do, that may be up to that person. But the ultimate goal is to continue to be part of the ongoing great life, life which is essentially the workings of compassion. Okay. Any more? Igor, you're muted.
Yes, thanks. Another one from June. This is beginning to sound like Christianity's heaven.
Well, you can it's a realm after death, but it encompasses this life as well. But again, I want to emphasize the fact that this is in a realm of belief and faith, because, well, as we often say, none of us that we know have actually returned to be confirmed for sure. But again, I wanted to focus on the realization of Shinjin in this life. And that is probably the most important thing that I can say about what we have studied during these 10 months. And today, again, is discussing the realm of enlightenment, complete enlightenment, because as a Buddhist, that's where we attain Buddhahood. Now, I do want to say one point on this point about, because the aim of Buddhism is to become fully enlightened, to become Buddhas. Shin Buddhism is realistic in saying that we cannot become full Buddhas in this life because of our Bonbu imperfections. And so we realize Shinjin, a form of first level awakening. And so it's realistic. And I kind of appreciate that more than some schools that talk and aim for becoming Buddhas in this very life. Like, well, I won't mention the denomination, but I think that to me, at least, it is not something that I can realize. And so given all the failings and imperfections, I feel comfortable that I'm able to attain that level of awakening in Shinjin, which will then guarantee upon immediately after death to become Buddhas and partake in the ongoing support of compassionate working of Amida. So in that sense, I think there are some, descriptive differences between heaven in Pure Land, in the Judeo-Christian tradition. But, we're all human beings. I think that I don't want to emphasize too much the distinctions and uniqueness, but essentially we know that we have faith in the fact that we will be fine. We will attain our ultimate spiritual goal upon death, and that is important. And if you feel that there's no need for it, that's fine. No one is forcing you to accept what we have discussed mostly in this class. Okay, let me. I want to conclude, and I'm going to go a little bit over because this is a final class. So I'm going to so in closing the completion. Okay, so I want to make some comments about in the conclusion of this course. And so aim of the course, I hope that I have been able to fulfill at least some of the aims of the course outlined at the beginning, which were to respond to those of you who wanted to learn, one, about Shinran and its life, two, second, deeper meaning of Amida, Pure Land, Shinjin, Nembutsu, practice, social, etc. of the teachings in Shin Buddhism. And third, ways to deal more effectively with the ups and downs of ordinary lives. So the significance. So what I have presented in this course includes points that are not found at all or only to a limited degree in some other Shin Buddhist presentations. Of course, I have covered the basics of Shin Buddhism, and I don't think that anyone will say that I have not. And so the basics are in keeping, but I have gone a little further to talk about a few other things. And of course, the parable of the sailor, that is, in a way, not something that is something that I have thought of for a number of years and have made it central to my presentation. And I'm hoping that, in a way, I have this kind of a hope that it would rival the Zen 10 Oxford story. I'm being puffing myself up. No, it's much more simpler, and but anyway, I just want to qualify that I was just kidding when I say I'm trying to rival the Zen famous story of the 10 Oxford. Okay, but anyway, something else that I have emphasized, which may not be emphasized so much in other presentations, is the importance of carrying out practice, 6 perfections, not in a self-power mode, okay, but to serve as a mirror to become more aware of oneself, especially the imperfect and foolish Bonbu feature in ourselves, which are, comforting, because that's, when we are accepted for who we are, we don't have to pretend. Third, Shinjin involves not only entrusting, but also realization. This makes Shin Buddhism in line with the rest of Buddhism, which is a religion of awakening, not a religion of belief. So I emphasize the realization dimension. And then this is what Kathy asked earlier about, and the point that I made. We can interpret our sincere and sustained desire for a prolonged period of time to hear or study the teaching and to practice them as evidence of Shinjin. One way to rationally think about how we gain birth in the Pure Land is to rely on Shinran's explanation that karmic consciousness of Shinjin merges with a name and light by which we attain birth in the Pure Land. Okay. I suggest that we are free to exercise our imagination to think about all the exciting and provocative ways and forms when returning from the Pure Land and to be benefit to others. So these are some of the distinctions that my presentation may have provided. So next year's course, and I want to talk a bit about that. So I plan to offer another course next year in which we focus on how the Shin teachings can deal with the difficulties and sufferings in our lives. We did it to some extent, but I hope to do so a little bit more. This year, some of the participants in our course and even my own family experienced losses of our loved ones. Actually, I have found out through, maybe private conversations or correspondence that some of you have experienced this very loss during this year. And so such is the nature of our existence. So we want to deal with how Dharma can support us and make better sense of them. So, but also want to say that next year's course will be focusing to kind of deepen what we have talked about. And I want to do it by having guest speakers from both lay and ministers. I'm hoping that maybe some of you might be asked to participate in this, is to kind of share your stories like we have been doing with the sharing, but more in a kind of a systematic manner, and having a layperson talk about their questions and their experiences, and then having a Shin Buddhist teacher or minister kind of share theirs. And so we get the perspective of these people. And then so each of these people will do half an hour, and then the last section, I want to share the draft of the book that will come out of based on the course that I taught this year, and which will be entitled something like Ocean 2, Further Introduction to Shin Buddhism in the West and Beyond, which is the title of this course. So you will be able to see the text and then make contributions if you wish to make comments but so this will be only one part of the course, but the main part will be to have guest speakers. So in appreciation, I want to thank members of the steering committee, Anita, Deuce, Igor, Valerie, Alex, and Ryoe for their support in administering the various tasks of running this course, much of which are done behind the scenes. I could not have done what I have been able to do without you. So thank you. And to all of the 220 of you who registered for the course, I express my appreciation for being there to hear what I have to share. In all, more than half of you managed to stay to the very end of the course by either attending or watching the video, which I consider to be a pretty good percentage. You helped me to gain new perspectives and to propose new issues for me to think about, and through your questions, comments during the classes, during the questionnaire, through the questionnaire, and at the post-class Wisdom Water sessions. So information about next year's course will be sent to you early next year. You are more than welcome to sign up. Even if you do not sign up, please inform your family and friends about it. So in the end, may you continue to pursue your studies of the Dharma, to deepen your gratitude to the wisdom and compassion that is Amida, and to do what you can to be of benefit to others. And may we all attain perfect peace. Namo Ami Dabutsu. Okay, so this concludes the 10-part course, and yeah, it's been gratifying to be able to provide do this, and I want to make sure that this is translated into a book, which I hope will be, go even beyond the original Ocean book. So,
Sensei, are we doing Nirvana Hour today?
Doing our, you mean the Wisdom Water?
Yep.
Yeah, we're doing that. Yes. So
Okay.
I want to conclude now, and so Igor, you can do your conclusion.
Yeah, please let me say a few words. So this concludes our December class, the last class in the sequence by Reverend Dr. Tanaka. At this point, I already see that the thank yous are coming in chat. I can see that you're joining me in thanking Dr. Tanaka for this class. This was a truly wonderful journey that lasted a whole year. It allowed us to dive in the very essence of Shin Buddhism.
We cannot hear you, Igor.
Okay, another 15 years and I will get used to it. Okay. Sorry. Let me start over. I see already a lot of thanks in chat. Yeah. And I was just saying, I see that people are joining me in thanking you, Dr. Tanaka, for this class. This was a really great, wonderful journey that lasted a whole year. It allowed us to dive in the very essence of Shin Buddhism, to deepen our understanding and take a closer look at our lives and the world around. We hope that all of you found it instructive and meaningful. So, and there is, as usual, the link to the class questionnaire, I believe, for this session. Please, you're encouraged to respond, not for the instructor, but also to help you to put your thoughts together. And in order to grasp the teachings better, you're always encouraged to watch the video again. The link to the recording will be sent to you in a couple of days. For those of you who are interested in discussing it further tonight, now it's time to invite you to join Dr. Tanaka to our informal Nirvana hour, where you can share your ideas, ask questions, and get to meet one another, talk more in a more relaxed space. Some of us talk, some of us just listen, that's okay too. Don't forget to bring your wisdom water. The Nirvana hour is strictly optional. Please don't feel obligated to join. For those who are going to join, we'll take how many? 5-10 minute break?
No, well, make it 5.
5-minute break. So let's reconvene at 6:46.
Okay. So, mahalo and see you.
Thank you.